Sarah Whitfield, a devoted UK nurse, thought she had found love with Raghav Malhotra, a charming Indian man, but behind his promises of a future together lay a dark web of fraud, betrayal, and a shocking act of revenge that would end in brutal murder. Sarah Whitfield had spent most of her 20s working endless shifts at the hospital in Manchester. Her world revolved around patients, long hours, and the occasional quiet evening with a book. She was respected by her colleagues, adored by patients, yet her personal life felt painfully empty. Friends often teased her about being married to her job, but Sarah secretly longed for the kind of companionship she saw in others. She wanted someone to share her victories, comfort her after difficult nights, and dream about the future together. That longing grew stronger with every passing year. It was during a friend's birthday gathering at a small cafe that Sarah first met Raghav Malhotra. He stood out immediately, speaking with charm and confidence, his accent hinting at a life lived far away. He spoke of opportunities, travel, and a future he was building in the UK. His eyes carried warmth, and his words flowed with ease, drawing Sarah into his orbit. For the first time in years, she felt noticed in a way that went beyond her role as a nurse. She was not just a caregiver or a colleague. She was a woman being admired and cherished. Their relationship moved quickly, almost too quickly for those who knew Sarah well. Raghav seemed to know exactly what she wanted to hear. He talked about building a business empire, starting a family, and making her the center of his world. He filled her days with gestures of affection, surprising her with flowers, writing her small notes, and insisting that their connection was fate. For Sarah, who had lived such a careful and predictable life, the sudden rush of passion was intoxicating. She let herself believe she had finally found the man who would break the cycle of loneliness that had haunted her for years. Her friends were less convinced. Some whispered about how little anyone really knew about him, and others wondered why his stories about work always seemed vague. But Sarah dismissed their concerns, telling herself that not everyone understood how it felt to finally be loved after years of waiting. In her eyes, Raghav was her chance at happiness, and she wasn't about to let doubts get in the way. Just months after their first meeting, Sarah and Raghav stood together in a small ceremony, exchanging vows under the glow of soft lights. Sarah's heart was full of hope, convinced she was stepping into the life she had always dreamed of. It was the beginning of what she thought would be a promising future, one that seemed impossible to destroy. The early days of married life carried the glow of new beginnings, but it did not take long for unease to slip into Sarah's world. At first, the changes were subtle. Raghav would leave home for hours with little explanation, always saying he had urgent meetings or business matters to handle. He carried himself with the same charm that had first won her heart, but when she asked simple questions about his work, his answers seemed rehearsed, vague, and deliberately incomplete. Sarah wanted to believe him, but each missing detail created a small crack in the trust she once felt so strongly. Money soon became another shadow in their marriage. Raghav had promised her security and success, but instead he often asked Sarah for loans. He said he was waiting for investments to clear, insisting that once the money came through, they would live in comfort. Trusting him, Sarah dipped into her savings, telling herself this was what partners did, help each other in difficult times. But the debts piled up, and Sarah noticed how quickly her careful financial planning was unraveling. Each time she grew worried, Raghav soothed her with stories of the future, but his reassurances felt more like distractions than promises. The unease grew stronger when letters from immigration authorities began to arrive. The envelopes, stamped with official seals, asked for further details regarding Raghav's visa application. Sarah's name appeared on several documents as his spouse, making it clear that their marriage was not only personal, but also deeply tied to his legal status in the UK. For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to consider the unthinkable, that their marriage might have been more about convenience for him than love. Despite her doubts, she said nothing. She buried her fears beneath a smile, going to work each day as though everything was normal. Her colleagues noticed her distraction, but Sarah brushed aside their concern. Inside, she was torn between love and suspicion, unable to accept the idea that the man she had risked her heart for might be using her. As the days passed, Sarah's loneliness returned, only this time it was far heavier than before. The comfort of companionship had been replaced by the silence of unanswered questions. What had started as a marriage filled with affection was slowly shifting into a union clouded by secrets, and Sarah could not yet see just how dangerous those secrets would become. One evening, when the weight of suspicion became too much to bear, Sarah decided she could no longer ignore the nagging doubts that haunted her. While Raghav was away, she walked into his study, a room he often kept locked or entered only when she was asleep. The air was thick with the scent of stale cigarettes, and scattered papers lay in disarray across the desk. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding, but then forced herself to begin searching. What she found would change everything she thought she knew about her husband. At first, it was small things: a crumpled receipt in a foreign language, unopened letters addressed to names she had never heard of, and a folder filled with strange financial documents that made little sense to her. She told herself these could all have explanations, but the unease in her chest deepened with every page she turned. Then, tucked beneath a pile of papers, she uncovered photographs. The images showed Raghav with another woman, smiling in a way that seemed genuine and intimate. There were no dates, no labels, but the closeness between them was undeniable. Alongside the photographs were letters written in Hindi, some of which she struggled to understand. The tone, however, was unmistakable. These were not letters of business or friendship. They spoke of affection, of promises, of a life shared between two people. Among them, she discovered an application for marriage registration in India, signed and dated from years before she had even met him. The truth struck her like a blow. Raghav was already married, and she had unknowingly become part of his deception. Sarah's hands trembled as she pieced together the reality. Her marriage was not built on love but on lies. She had been manipulated, her kindness exploited, and her future entangled in a web of deceit that spanned across continents. For hours she sat in silence, staring at the evidence, feeling both devastated and enraged. In the days that followed, Sarah quietly gathered what she could. She made copies of documents, stored the photographs, and contacted a solicitor in secret. She resolved that she would not let Rag have continued this cycle of fraud, not with her or with anyone else. What she did not realize was that her quiet investigation had not gone unnoticed. Raghav, ever watchful, had already begun to suspect her movements. While Sarah believed she was preparing to expose him, he was preparing for something much darker. The night of Sarah's death began like any other, but beneath the ordinary routine lingered a sense of unease she could not shake. After a grueling late shift at the hospital, she drove home through rain, slicked streets, her mind heavy with thoughts of the evidence she had gathered. The decision to report Raghav to the authorities weighed on her, but she also felt a faint flicker of hope that she might finally free herself from the nightmare she was trapped in. She parked outside the house, noticing that the windows were dark, and assumed Raghav was still away. The quiet felt unnatural, pressing against her as she unlocked the door. The moment she stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. A faint smell of alcohol lingered in the air, mixed with incense smoke that clung to the walls. The living room, usually tidy, seemed oddly disordered, as if someone had been pacing back and forth. Sarah's instincts screamed that she was not alone. Before she could retreat, Raghav appeared from the shadows, his expression stripped of charm, his eyes filled with fury. He had been waiting for her. Sarah froze, her heart racing as she realized he must have discovered her plans. The calm, confident man she once thought she knew was gone, replaced by someone dangerous and unpredictable. His voice was low and sharp, accusing her of betrayal, of ruining everything he had built. She backed away, but the small room offered no escape. The rage that consumed him exploded without warning. The attack was brutal and merciless. Sarah fought desperately, but the strength and speed of his violence overwhelmed her. Neighbors later reported hearing muffled thuds and a cry that was quickly silenced. By the time the house fell quiet again, the woman who had once healed so many lives lay lifeless on the floor of her own home. When morning came, the silence in Sarah's house became noticeable. A neighbor, unsettled by the strange noises of the night, called the police. Officers entered to find a chilling scene: furniture overturned, broken glass on the floor, and Sarah's body lying where she had fallen. Raghav was nowhere to be found. He had vanished into the stormy night, leaving behind only destruction and a hollow emptiness that would soon spark a nationwide manhunt. The discovery of Sarah's body sent shockwaves through the quiet neighborhood, and within hours her death became the center of a full-scale investigation. Detectives quickly pieced together fragments of her life, uncovering the evidence she had collected in secret. The photographs, letters, and documents revealed a disturbing picture of fraud, deceit, and betrayal. Raghav was the immediate suspect, but he had already slipped away, leaving investigators chasing shadows. His sudden disappearance confirmed their fears. This was not a crime of passion alone, but a desperate attempt to silence the woman who threatened to expose him. A manhunt was launched across the UK, stretching to airports, train stations, and known associates. For weeks, there were no clear leads, and whispers spread that he had managed to escape the country entirely. The truth came months later when authorities, working with international agencies, traced him to Delhi. He had been hiding at a relative's home, attempting to secure false documents to flee again. His arrest was quiet, almost anticlimactic, but for those who had followed the case, it marked the beginning of long-awaited justice. The trial revealed layers of Raghav's deception that stunned the public. Prosecutors detailed how he had orchestrated multiple scams, targeting vulnerable women across different countries. Marriage was his tool for immigration benefits and financial gain, and Sarah was only one of several victims ensnared in his web. Witnesses described his calculated charm, his ability to manipulate emotions, and the chilling ease with which he discarded anyone who threatened to expose him. The most haunting evidence came from Sarah's own courage. The files she had gathered were presented in court, proving she had recognized the truth and tried to protect herself before her life was taken. The jury found him guilty of murder, fraud, and multiple counts of deception. The judge's words were final, a life sentence without the possibility of early release. Yet for Sarah's family and friends, justice felt hollow. No sentence could erase the image of a kind and selfless nurse, whose only mistake was trusting too deeply. In the aftermath, Sarah's colleagues held vigils at the hospital, where she had spent so much of her life caring for others. Her name became a symbol of both compassion and caution, a reminder that even the brightest love stories can conceal dangerous lies. The case closed with a chilling message: sometimes the most devastating betrayals come not from strangers, but from those who promise love and protection.